Recording started. All right, so today we have episode 151 of Ascension with A Course in Miracles, and it is June the 19th. Oh my gosh, this year is almost over with. And the more that I study the Course, the more that I listen to those who channel Jesus teaching about the Course, the clearer and clearer and clearer becomes for me this awareness that we are in the midst of a new beginning. We are, and for a new beginning, there has to be an ending. Just as Dondra and I were talking about, so many young people, when they have a miscarriage, lose a child at a young age. In this day and age, that's not the end of that being. They're spoken of as if they're still here. I have a friend who lost their 5-year-old granddaughter. One of those other freak accidents where a tree fell on the little girl. And anyways, that family doesn't stop talking about that little girl as if she's there. And anyhow, the more comfortable that we get with the idea that we are eternal, the less taboo conversations and don't bring it up. We don't want to upset the parents. Those things are going to go away, because the more that we realize that we're eternal, the less that there is to fret about anything. That is one of the greatest freedoms that we experience when we fully accept our eternalness, is that there is nothing to worry about. Get this little light up here. There is nothing to worry about. We're letting go of fears. We're letting go of worries. We're letting go of concerns. We're letting go. That's what freedom is. Freedom from the mind contracting us, making us feel discomfort, because the mind thinks a thought, oh, that shouldn't happen, or that shouldn't be, or that's terrible, that's tragic, too bad, too sad. All of those comments that are made, those are going to disappear in time, because they are not necessary when we understand the eternalness of who we are. When we're eternal, we're creating experiences. We create the experience of incarnating, the experience of being a miscarriage, the experience of being a child who dies in an early age. We really, truly are eternal beings playing in an incredible playground. There is no limit to playground that consciousness is. So the more comfortable that we get with everything being eternal, the more we will have peace when things come and things go. Because in the coming and going, all that it is no different than an actor or an actress who puts on a costume, plays a part, takes the costume off. The actor, the actress is like the soul, the spirit that is eternal. There is no end to it. So however many costumes we put on, however many roles that we play, in eternity, our roles are going to be eternal. So the more that we understand that we are playing eternal roles, the less that we are going to suffer when people decide, I'm done with this role. So the whole transition process that we call death is nothing but an exit stage left. It truly is a leaving the stage of this physical plane to regroup. It's like, think of God as our agent. We're going to go meet with our agent and talk about what role are we going to play next. And when we get so comfortable that we are taking a break, everybody that exits to regroup, to look at, was that a fun journey? Did I learn what I was meaning to learn? Did I cause harm? So do I need to come in and into a lifetime where that's done to me so I can practice forgiveness? We are playing all of these roles that balance out karma. And karma is going to be a thing of the past to those who awaken in the dream. As the Course teaches us, the happy dream is nothing more than when we realize this is all made up. So now let's make it up as a happy dream. Let's make it up without the suffering, without the lying, the cheating, the judging, the lack, the misery. When we realize that we are the actors of this grand performance that we're putting on, and we awaken in the dream and realize, you know what? I don't want to be poor anymore, or I don't want to be unloved anymore, or I don't want to be alone anymore, or I want to be alone. When we realize that whatever our heart desires, we are the bringers of it. We are the ones who manifest that experience. Now, you have to understand that there is a part of the journey where that doesn't make sense to someone who's going through an awakening. Let me show another chart. So in this chart that I've tied to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, people who are barely sustaining themselves, that are operating, they don't have the security of air, of food, of shelter, of sleep. They are really in prisons, for example, let's say solitary confinement, or that they're in the wilderness, nomads escaping war-torn places, and they just don't know if they're going to find food, if they're going to find shelter, if they're going to be able to sleep, because the bombs are going off at night so that they can't sleep at all. And then during the day, they're in survival mode, scavenging, trying to find whatever they can. The air is so polluted from whatever is happening. That person is not looking for God. That person, they may be praying to God, but they're praying to a God, you have the power out there and I don't have it in here. These people are in pure survival mode. In survival mode, you are rooted to that first chakra. You are just trying to be alive. As we progress, as humanity progresses, think of the process of ascension, as I've said it so many times, like grades in school. At the bottom grade, if you don't secure kindergarten, if you don't have stability, you can't continue to build on that. So Course in Miracles has taught us that the reason that we are insecure is because we listen to a voice that lies to us. We listen to a voice that tells us, first lie, that we're separate from God. Second lie, well, if I'm separate from God, I got to count on myself because I can't count on God. So reliance on self. And those minds that operate, and all of us, of course, have operated at that level until you begin to see that that's not helpful. Those minds that have operated on reliance on self begin to be, or have no other choice but to be selfish, greedy, find people to connect with and operate. This is how mafias operate. We have something that is common to us, and we're gonna take care of each other. And if you don't follow the rules, then we're gonna exit you in a not pleasant way. So we tend to band together with those who are selfishly oriented, because that's just the nature of the egoic aspect of self. So as we continue to become a little bit more aware of who we are, begin to understand that second chakra of emotions, the third chakra of our belief systems, and we begin to shift our beliefs. No big change happens here until you begin to shift your beliefs. Because when you begin to shift your beliefs, for example, I prefer a better job, or I prefer to not be in a relationship where I'm suffering, or I prefer to do something that is more enjoyable. Or when you can begin to change your mind and things are not just accepted as this is it, I have no choice, you begin to realize that you have the ability to be curious, to desire things, to go to school and do something different, to go to take art classes because you want to expand yourself. And there's no age limit in becoming curious and being willing to expand. But somebody who's in a war-torn area is not thinking about their next art class. They're thinking survival. So to get to a place where you can begin to address social needs, the desires of expansion, like art, those are things that happen above and beyond taking care of your basic needs. So as we understand the way the human mind operates, and we understand that there are very specific needs, that's why, Maslow gave us this wonderful hierarchy of needs, which, by the way, if you take the hierarchy of needs and you match that up with what another brilliant brother of ours on this earthly plane, Dr. David Hawkins, gave us, the map of consciousness, People who are operating down here at the very lower levels of the frequency of consciousness are also operating at the lowest levels of the hierarchy of needs, which is why I took the hierarchy of needs and I took the scale of emotions, the map of consciousness from Dr. David Hawkins. So as we begin to weave together the understandings that we have from kinesiology, the understandings from psychology, the understandings from math, as you learn about numerology, and something I'm still learning, as you learn about astrology, we got our sweet astrologer here in the house. As you learn about all of these different ways that we are being given signals, and we begin to be you have to be receptive to see where do you fall on those scales. They're all helpful because all of them tie together to help us read, understand, discover how everything works together. But when the ego is selfishly oriented, and no, I do it all by myself, and this is the only thing that's right, we tend to block out the ability to receive guidance from lots of different places, especially for me, from something like A Course in Miracles. I never would have read this book before I started my journey at the age of 42. I didn't want to read this nonsense because I had it all figured out. Well, as we move through a process of understanding that we are being called right now to recognize that we are in the midst of a new beginning, and the new beginning is because humanity is ascending to another level of consciousness. We are done with anybody living in survival mode. The average person thinks that that is totally unnecessary. There's plenty of food. There's plenty of water. And we should be spending resources in cleaning up the air, cleaning up the water, cleaning up the ground, so that there is abundance for anybody and everybody. We are wanting more for others. Finally, humanity is moving out of the selfishness and moving into a more elegant awareness of connection, of unity. And the groups that have thought that way were small, and they band together and they came together and they started movements and things like that, but they were still relatively small. We have been moving through a trajectory in space known as we started through the harmonic convergence that started in about 87, 88. My daughter was born around that time. That's when a lot of channeling began to happen here on the planet, and we began to receive a lot of information because we are moving. We have to understand our placement in the cosmos. We cannot understand our place in the cosmos until we move to a much more higher and elegant understanding of what is. While you're in survival mode and you're just taking care of food and shelter, you cannot focus in on anything else. If you're hungry, that has your focus. Then you move to a more elegant place where you gain employment and you have good health and you have property, you feel a little security. Then from that place, I know I felt that more like in my 20s, my early 30s. Then you begin to realize that you belong, that you're part of a community, that you're not in survival, you already have a place to live, you feel secure, you have a job, you have income. Then you can move into cultivating deeper relationships. You have, disposable money to go on trips and do things with family, with friends. You begin to expand yourself into the awareness of what is there beyond just you. This is all you. This is maybe your immediate people. This is a little bigger of a circle. Then you begin to move because you're operating from a heart chakra, throat chakra, where you're self-expressed, where you're no longer afraid to do what you want to do, where you take those art classes that maybe you didn't take as a young person because, well, you weren't going to make any money at it because artists starve after all. And you move into those more elegant places. From that place, you begin to expand your mind in such a way that you understand the place of humanity in the cosmos. You realize that we're not the only game in town. And now there's so much information about UFOs, the things that have been happening with extraterrestrials for thousands of years are now being exposed in a really big way. Some people, some outliers have been sharing information, but they were always made to be the crazies. And now we have people with a lot of credentials. It's coming even from our own government, who we value so much. As the Course in Miracles has taught us, we've made idols of them. So we expect them to really know more than anybody or everybody. So now they're putting out this information that for a very long time, we have been in communication with beings outside of this planet, that we have been doing all kinds of things, good, bad, and indifferent, with beings outside of this planet. So we're being prepared for contact. We're being prepared to understand that we are part of something grand. If we begin to study things like astrology, study astronomy, we get comfortable with the idea that it's a big universe. Course in Miracles is letting us know in this particular chapter that we're studying, in chapter 30 in the text, the new beginning. Of course, we've been there for a while because we're not going to rush through this information. But the new beginning is preparing us to understand by training our mind, because A Course in Miracles is a course in mind training, to train our mind to do the work that is necessary to heal everything from the lowest chakra up until we can move into these higher chakras, where we are literally opening our mind to receive guidance from beyond, to get comfortable. And not everybody is comfortable. Again, if you're in survival, if you're just trying to get, established in your career, most of these things you're not necessarily going to be paying attention to, because they're outside of the realm of your current focus. And where our attention goes, our energy flows. If your attention is in finding food, your energy is in finding food. If your attention is in a place where you recognize, okay, I've got my job, I've got the income comes in, I've got the family, I've got the connections, I really understand that I'm connected to something greater. Now I want to know about that. Well, the new beginning is that humanity as a collective, and this is what we have to understand, is very different. As a collective, we have to take an average of what's happening here. Are there people who are suffering? Absolutely. Are there people who are operating on this planet in transcendence? Absolutely. Those who recognize that we are one with all that is, were few and far between. At the time of Jesus, maybe there was one. At the time of Buddha, maybe there was one. At the time of Lao Tzu, maybe there was one. At the time of Gandhi, maybe there were 100. Maybe there were 1,000. Now we have millions of people who have been studying. I mean, a lot of these studies began in the times of Thoreau and Emerson in the 1800s, where there was a movement, and I forget it was called the Great Awakening, by the way, at that time, but they were moving out of the religious constraints and beginning to understand the power of the mind. That's where science of mind, unity movements, so many things began to emerge at that time, because there was an awareness that our mind creates our reality. The new beginning that the Course wants us to get comfortable with is that we have to see everything that we have placed value on. That's why we spend so much time looking at idols, how we have given power outside of ourselves. The new beginning is a time where you acknowledge that you are the being, you are the power. You are the expression of God in physical form, in your own unique way here to expand the kingdom. The kingdom of heaven has been contracted by minds that have believed that we are powerless and power is outside of us. So that gave rise to idols, leaders of churches, leaders of governments, leaders of politics, leaders in medicine, leaders in the education system, to take advantage of those who were afraid. Was everybody taking advantage of the fear for once? No. Many were attempting to do the best that they could with what they had. But some knew, well, while people are afraid, they're controllable. Of course, the Course in Miracles tells us that. When your mind is completely in fear, you do not know who you are, you will be controlled by external forces. You will give your power to one that you think is going to be your savior. And the Course in Miracles is designed to bring you back inside of yourself so that you are the one who saves yourself. Because the Course says, my salvation depends on me. And our salvation When we save ourselves, then we are in service to saving our brothers and sisters. And the way we save our brothers and sisters is by no longer seeing them as we thought they were before, by no longer seeing victims, by no longer seeing people who are unloving or uncaring. We have to see them as loving beings who have forgotten who they are, loving beings who have been conditioned into the submission of their true power, because through fear, they give their power away to somebody else. Government, you protect me. Military, you keep me safe. Financial system, you make sure that I've got all the money that I need so that I'm okay. You don't mess things up. Don't shake things up, because I need my fixed income. So we're moving out of that reliance on the external. We're coming inside, the new beginning. And think about how beautiful this is. The new beginning is when we know every one of us is a powerful creator. Everyone is the actor of our own play. And we realize that there are no curtains dividing us, that we can see each other, that everybody is seen as a powerful creator, and we treat each other accordingly. That when somebody does something that is unloving, that we say, hey, we know that you can do loving things. This behavior is not acceptable, because we know that there's greater good in you. I forget it. I've heard this maybe 15, 20 years ago, that there was a tribe in Africa, and that in this community, when a person did something that was unkind, stealing something or lying, that they would put that person in the center of a circle, and everybody would stand around them. And what they would do, instead of telling them how bad they were, instead of stoning them for their punishment, they would remind them of their beauty. They would remind them of their ability to be honest. People would share stories of, hey, I know you're a very honest person. Remember that time I lost my purse and you found it and brought it to me? I remember what a helpful person you are. I saw you helping your father in the field and plowing and doing hard work. I know that you are a caring being. And these people that would be put into the circle were just simply reminded of the truth of who they are, because they were being seen by those on the outside of the circle as reflections of themselves. How would I like to be treated if I happen to be in those shoes? And A Course in Miracles is training our mind to do unto others as we would like them to do unto us. That's how we save our brothers and sisters. We spare them our egoic nonsense, and we begin to see the truth in them, because we have began to accept that truth in ourselves. And you can only judge somebody else as a liar if you haven't addressed the lying that you've done. I know it was very easy for me to spot a liar, or to spot a judgmental person, because I was doing that. But when you begin to realize, okay, I've got to forgive myself for these mistakes that I made. Nobody taught me things like the Course in Miracles taught me. But once I began to learn them from A Course in Miracles, I had to begin to do differently. That allowed me to train my mind and begin to ascend through the levels of consciousness that allows me to trust that all my needs are taken care of. Like the lilies of the valley, I do not fret about where things are coming. That's why so much of my journey has been a journey of surrendering where I live, surrendering the partner, surrendering the money, so that I could be being totally and completely dependent on God within me, meaning totally, completely trusting that I am loved, that I live in a benevolent universe. The new beginning that the Course teaches us is a world where we all realize that being one, we help each other. That being one, there are no haves and have-nots. That being one, we are here in service to the greater good of all. So it's amazing things that are coming. So as we continue to shift, moving into the places in space called the photon belt, where the energies are so active, and it's because we're spiraling into we're just spiraling in space to a place where, and I can't explain these things because are not things that I have put a lot of time of study into, because when I first began to read or hear about them, they resonated so deeply with my heart that my trust of them is all that I needed. I didn't need to delve into details because the essence of it resonates deeply within my heart. We are being fully supported in the process of ascension. We are being fully supported. Another chart. Humanity has only two places that, or all beings have only two places that we can go, either to continue to expand the kingdom or to make a decision by free will to contract the kingdom. So when we operate from ego and it's selfish and greedy, we feel pretty small, me against the world. That's part of the nature of falling asleep, is that we go into contraction. But as we move into the awareness of who we are, we expand. And humanity is in the process of having to make a choice. There are those who are going to contract and continue to explore the darker realms, which is the realms of blocking the light. Nothing wrong with that. And there are those of us who've made that decision. And the cutoff is coming quick. By the end of this decade, by the year 2030, we will have crossed a threshold. And again, don't ask me to give you those details because they're out there. You can do your own research. They're everywhere if you're willing to look for that. But you have to be expanding your mind. You can't understand these things and know of these things if you're not prepared to look into, well, what does that mean? And how can I be in service to the co-creation of that? The happy dream that we are being prepared for, as we were studying last week. Last week we started in chapter 30, in the new beginning. We started looking at section number 7, which is titled The New Interpretation. When we are healed enough, when we are no longer in the lower realms of the physical needs, and we're moving into the places where we feel safe, and we feel safe because we're trusting God. That's what this whole thing with the map of consciousness is about. Our view of God is so limited. And when we begin to move out of this God that is despising or vindictive or punitive or vengeful, those are very immature perspectives of God, but we have believed that those are true perspectives of God because, after all, they were told to us by people we idolized. The heads of the churches, the popes, the people at these higher realms, and they've been telling us of a punitive God, so we believed it. But as our mind begins to move, begins to ascend from low calibration and kinesiology to a higher frequency, where we begin to become more clear about who we are, where we begin to be more demanding, we want better for ourselves, then we begin to move. We cross this threshold of courage to begin to want to know what God is. We begin to see that God is a permitting God. God allows, through free will, all beings to do whatever we want to do. God doesn't punish us for playing in darkness. God simply gives us total, complete reign as a parent that says, okay, you can go play with any of these toys. And if you use the toy to hurt yourself, I didn't create the toy to hurt you, but if you're going to use the toy to hurt yourself, then you just have the consequences of that. I'm not going to punish you for that. So if you play with darkness, which is basically, there is no such thing as darkness. There is a block to light. There is no such thing as nighttime. There is simply the light is behind us. It's on the other side of the planet. We can't see it, but it is there. But we call it night because we don't see the light. We call it darkness because we don't remember the truth of who we are. But it doesn't mean it's not there. So our mind is getting trained into accepting logically the things that are true. Because when you accept that the light is always there, the sun is always there, just because you can see it, just because it's behind the house or behind the planet, doesn't mean it's not there. So we have to become more mature in our perspective and realize that the light is always there. God is always there. It is a permitting God. It is an enabling God. It enables all of us to have whatever experience we want to have. And as we begin to cultivate a relationship with God, this is the column of God view, according to the book Power versus Force, then we move into an inspiring God. You begin to be inspired. You begin to tap into God in you because it's no longer out there. God is in here. You feel the inspiration. And if not from you, you feel inspired by others who share what they're discovering from God. And we are shifting our perception from the punitive God that is necessary down here to a God that is inspiring us when you are here at a higher frequency. And again, if you put this through this chart, you can't be inspired by God until you move out of the density and contraction of the ego. If you take the next chart, sorry, today you're getting all my charts. If you take the chart of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you cannot ascend into a relationship with God until your personal social needs are taken care of. So you have to move up in your relationship with God, just as you move up in your relationship with yourself, with the outside, with the social order. And then you begin to realize, well, it's a merciful God. It's a wise God. It's a loving God. It's a God of oneness. It's a God that is in all beings, because all beings are made of the same life force that God is. And then you begin to realize, because to move into the highest perspective of God is to recognize God as yourself, capital S, because you have come inside. That's what the Course is so beautiful to me for, is that it has brought me to understand my relationship with God so that I could ascend in my God view. And when you begin to realize, wow, I'm the essence of God and so are you, and I treat you as that being that you are, which is nothing but the Christed being. Jesus taught us that. So many of the incredible teachers that we have had on this planet, they were able to discover the truth of who they were, and then they recognized, and so are you. So is everybody else. Jesus told us that I and God are one, and so are you. I and God are one. Jesus knew that he, the self, the capital S self that he is God expressing itself through him, and so are we. So the new interpretation last week, we read that God didn't create a world that doesn't have meaning. God didn't leave us to interpret the world. We chose to interpret the world, but God gave it already a meaning. And the meaning that God gave it is that it is good, that it is a loving world, that it is made of people who are the children of God, that God loves equally, that God gave each a purpose, and that's to be happy. When we begin to understand the real truth, the real meaning of everything, and we operate from that, well, the egoic selfishness, the greeds, the immature way of thinking, it goes away. You can't be thinking immaturely if you're realizing we are all one and the same. We are all God expressed. So the mind gets trained little by little to find the meaning in things, to move out of selfishness, to move into expansiveness, from little me to we. And then it tells us that when we begin to move in that direction of looking for the meaning that God has placed on things, and we begin to trust it. It's one thing to say, oh yeah, I believe we're all one, and that stays at the level of the head, and you do that on Sundays at your spiritual community, and then the rest of the day you're in fear, you're in worry, you're cheating on your taxes, you're stealing, you're lying to your family. Oh no, I can't come visit you guys today because I don't feel well, but you really feel fine. You're just going to go out with your friends to do something else because you'd rather be with your friends and your family. Well, if that's still happening, if there's still worry and concern that you're aging, if there's still worry and concern that your cough isn't going away, or you're not having enough money coming into your bank account, or you're worried about the elections this year, you're worried about the next pandemic, you don't know God. You cannot know God and have worries at the same time. Those are two totally different frequencies. To know the peace of God that passes all understanding, you must know that you and God are one. Yourself, your capital S self, must be fully awakened, fully activated. You have taken full and total and complete dominion over what God has given you to have dominion over, which is your mind first and foremost. So as we continue here, as we give ourselves permission to have our mind be renewed, so that we will be transformed through the renewing of our mind, so that A Course in Miracles can teach us how to train our mind to understand the truth, to sort the truth from what is not true, to sort the lies from what is actually real. I started off with this chart today. When we can take everything and break it down into two columns, when we operate from ego, we have very little light that we even believe is inside of us. As we move through the process of shifting our thinking, changing our beliefs, releasing those pent-up emotions that are part of the lies that we believed, what happens is that we begin to operate from the light that we really are. But there's still a little ego inside of us because we're thinking we're separate. And that's okay to have a little ego in you. If you are the one, if you live your life from your heart, then your mind, your egoic mind is in service to it. So it's not a big deal. But while you are operating primarily from ego, from fear, the light is in you. You just may not be able to tap into it as easily because you're so concerned about, the fear-based things, because you're in that Maslow's hierarchy of needs in survival mode. So as we allow ourselves to give ourselves permission to let the Holy Spirit lead us, to sit in stillness and ask God, what would you have me do? Well, then the Holy Spirit will look at everything in the world with one purpose. And that is to help establish that which is changeless within us, to help us remember who we truly are. So we are being told that, the script is written. We read that not too long ago, and now we are being given permission to rewrite the script. So as the actor, the actress that we each are upon this stage, we get to write the script. Do we write the script with the ego, participate in the selfishness, the greed, the haves and the have-nots, or do we rewrite the script with God, participate in that there's more than enough, in abundance, in love, in light, in caring, in equality? Truly, when we are equal, we don't need to have special days like Pride Day or Indigenous Day or anything. We don't need to do that because we are all, every one of us is equally the same. We don't need to create specialness. Over here, the ego has to have special parades for this group because they've been oppressed. So then we oppress, I get my sides confused. So we oppress this group. Now they need to have their parade. And then eventually this group decides, well, now we're going to oppress this group. And guess what? Now I'm hearing the white people want to have parades. So while we are making special groups and one has to have a parade over the other to show how wonderful they are, we are staying on a seesaw that goes up and goes down according to the ego. But when we're all equal, who needs a parade? You just live your life, and that your life is the parade. Your life is the expression of the goodness of who you are, because it comes from inside, not from who comes to see you at a freaking parade. Anyways, and I love a parade, by the way, so it's okay. I do like parades. So let's go into paragraph number 2. What do your scripts reflect except your plans for what the day should be? So as we wake up, as we begin to listen to the Holy Spirit and we make a decision, I'm going to listen to the voice for God. And we're operating in that awareness that, God, what would you have me do? You wake up in the morning, God, what would you have me do? How can I live my day that is in service to the greater good of all? When you are operating from that desire to be in service to the greater good, that's because you have no fears that everything is going to work out fine. You have no fears that you have shelter. You have no fears that there's plenty of food, plenty to come. For example, I absolutely know without a shadow of a doubt that humanity, the Course has told me that. The Course is very clear in what's coming. And that is a total and complete dissolving of that which is egoic for those who want that experience. So if you can see what the Course is teaching you and you understand, okay, let me use this as a gauge of what's happening in the world, as within, so without, then you can see that as we undo our ego inside, the egoic collective has to be undone inside. Well, I need to be right and be mother knows best, or whatever it might be. While I need that to happen in here, I then need those who out there think that they are right. The politicians or the heads of corporations, those who worship money out there, because I used to worship money as well. I thought that my net worth defined my self-worth. But when those things get untangled, then those things that are about worth on the outside, that are the keepers of the money, those systems have to crumble, because there won't be people here who need those things there to idolize. So as you understand that everything is as within, so without, as above, so below, then you can see what's coming. You can see ahead, and that there is a crumbling of the old. Well, for the crumbling of the old to happen is because so many of us are standing for the new beginning. You decide, I'm not going to live my life in fear. I'm not going to live my life in worry and concern. So what do you live your life in? Then you create a script for that. And these have been known for a very long time as affirmations. You affirm what it is that you prefer. I'm a divine child of God. Suffering is not part of my reality. I can handle whatever comes my way as an experience that I'm having. And if people die, if people get sick, if things happen, if that happens, if sickness is going to be part of my experience, I can handle it. I will move through it with love and with grace and with curiosity. I wonder why I got this. I wonder what this is here to teach me, what this is here to give me an opportunity for me to experience. Never any of that is going to take from me, but all of that is adding to my personal experience. So my scripts are very simple, and they became very simple when I had my encounter with God, and I realized I and God are one. Where's that other one? When I was reading, as a matter of fact, I was starting to read Power versus Force, and I realized I and God are one. And it happened in August of 2007. And I had that encounter with God. And I realized I and God are one. It totally shifted me. When I had a moment of conversation with God, I said, well, how do I know that I'm operating from I and God are one? And how do I know that that is who I am? I was told very clearly, your life will be fun and easy. And I'm telling you, when I operate from the knowingness and my life is fun and easy, and everything unfolds with ease, and everything unfolds with grace, and it is fun, it is enjoyable, because our purpose is to experience love, joy, and peace. The Course tells you joy is one of the characteristics of a teacher of God. You have to enjoy life. It has to be fun. When you understand that you're operating by being at that frequency, then everything that happens is just an opportunity for you to enjoy it. So the script for me is life is fun and easy. And if there's a moment that it isn't fun or it isn't easy, then I know my ego's involved. So there's no out there that is blocking my fun and my joy. It's in here. What perception do I have about that thing that is causing me to not enjoy it, to not experience it? As an actor enjoys a part, and actors enjoy being murdered or being a murderer. It's fun to play the role. So once you become clear that you are playing a role and you want to enjoy it fully, you're not going to want to create situations that bring suffering, that won't compute with one who is wanting to have a script that is about joy. So the new beginning is you're clear who you are, what you're vibing at, and you only want to operate from that frequency. And it's becoming very, very clear that everything is going to be measured by frequency, not by credit score, not by social score, not by haves and have-nots, but by frequency. Those who are contracted in low frequency, those who are expanded in high frequency. Those who are expanded in high frequency are loving life. They're in service. They're not greedy. They're sharing. They know, they trust there's abundance. Those who are operating in low frequency, it's all about themselves. They have to have the spotlight on them. I mean, it becomes very clear. You can watch now very easily if you understand these principles, and you can see who's low vibe, who's high vibe. It's not a good or bad thing. It's simply an expanded or contracted experience. That's all that it is, because God doesn't judge anything. So what do your scripts reflect except your plans for what the day should be? And thus you judge disaster and success, advance, retreat, and gain and loss. These judgments are all made according to the roles the script assigns. So you begin to look at everything. These people who are in judgment, well, then you recognize, you forgive them. They know not what they're doing. People who are in a state of fear, in a state of concern. As we look with awareness to what is coming, the undoing of the egoic world, so that we give rise to the world that God has created for us, meaning we're removing the obstacles. That's all that this means. The collapse of the systems that are egoically based is the collapse of the obstacles to God's way being available for all to experience. Isn't that wonderful? God wants us to have abundance. Well, what's collapsing? The greedy institutions, the greedy pharmaceuticals, the greedy, what do you call those? Financial systems. Anything that only a few can benefit from. And we have been conditioned to believe the haves and the have-nots, the 1%, and then the rest of us. Who said that? Egos made that up. God did not. So the collapse of what is not serving is simply the dropping down of the veil. It's like finally being able to see that the Wizard of Oz is hiding behind a veil, and we're pulling the curtain. And now we're seeing, oh, wow, all those horrible things were just made up by people who did not know that we are one. Well, we forgive them, for they know not what they're doing. And then we band together. The 99% has the power to say, that's okay, let this fall. It doesn't matter. We have more than enough to take care of you people, to be able to make sure that everybody is taken care of and lives according to however they want to live. If we allow ourselves to align with God, and we recognize the God self within each and every one of us, and we operate from our higher self, that is an enlightened being, there is no greed, there is no hoarding, there is no just for me and not for you. So what happens is we can watch those who are judgmental, those who are in fear, those who are playing the roles of gain, of advance, of retreat or loss. And you just sit back here and say, well, I'm not going to play those games, because that's not part of my reality. I'm creating from a place of knowing my magnificence and your magnificence that God created us to create. So I'm going to continue to create in service for the greater good. Sentence 4 says, the fact that they have no meaning in themselves is demonstrated by the ease with which these labels change with other judgments made on different aspects of experience. And then in looking back, you think you see another meaning in what went before. We are going to have a moment of hindsight. It's coming, where we're going to see that not just for the last few decades, not just for the past few centuries, but for thousands upon thousands of years, humanity has been ruled by the ego mind, by those who have listened to these beliefs and perpetuated those beliefs, that sickness, that lack, that lies, that death, that jealousy, that controlling, that censoring, that wars, that greed was okay. They've been running the world. And those of us who were born into, who incarnated into these lifetimes, we were playing roles to make all of that true, to let us have those experiences. We played those roles. We were amazing actors and actresses playing the serfs or the people in the jails or whatever. Maybe we played the prince and the queens. Maybe that was part of our experiences. But now we are looking at all of that without judging it. Oh, it is what it is. Like an actor who completes a play, they don't need to judge the role that they just played. They don't need to judge the characters and that were in the movie with them before that did horrible things. Why? Why waste your time judging what is past and what has no power if you don't give it power? So what happens is you decide, well, what script do I want? I want a world where there is total transparency in the banking world. It's already happening. The blockchain system, if you pay attention to all of the advances that are already taken, the new medical systems, which are old medical systems because they're based on holistic things, they're based on truth, they're based on nature, they're based on acknowledging the well-being of the body and enhancing that, not polluting the water, the air, and keeping people in the low levels of fear because they can't find a good air, a good clean water, a good soil to grow healthy food in. All the GMOs, that's going to be a thing of the past pretty soon. Watch, those things are crumbling. Why? Because they're obstacles to the well-being that God has said is our birthright as a children of God. But also, God said, because God doesn't judge, well, if you want to block the goodness in your soils, then by all means, go ahead and buy junk food and give your money, buy the stocks of these corporations that pollute the air. If you want to make money, you can be greedy and make a bunch of money for yourself while at the same time supporting the companies that pollute the air and the water and the food. People are going to have to look at their financial portfolios. I know I did. I used to buy, I forget what money markets, I think they were. I never looked at what those companies were using my money for. And I could rationalize, well, it's only, a couple $1,000 and they're billion-dollar companies. Every bit that we support that creates blocks to what God has decreed should be our birthright, well-being, we have been complicit in. Course in Miracles is wanting us to understand that we need to not have guilt about this. We play parts and roles, and the roles are changing if you want a different role. And if you want a different role, you got to move out of the egoic role and move in to your role as a divine being. And a divine being doesn't do anything that hurts others. It's not possible. You don't produce cheap clothing, at the dollar store by hurting children in low-income areas like in Africa, third world countries. You just don't do that. You have less stuff. You recycle things. You become very conscious because what you do to another, you do to yourself. And it is not possible the day is coming. It is not going to be possible to walk upon this earth and not feel if there is one hair out of place in any of God's children's, because the channels for telepathy are becoming much more connected. We're feeling each other a lot more. And it is going to start. It is starting. It has started with feeling the darkness first, because we have to feel the obstacles first that we have been allowing to be okay, so that we can then say, nope, that's not okay anymore, not by judging it, but by saying, here's another way. Let's write the script this way. So then it tells us we're going to be able to look back and see, oh, wow, that's the way the ego game is played. Now we're going to play the game with the Holy Spirit. So we look back and realize there's no need in judging it. It's a waste of time to judge the past, but it is a very good use of time to look at it, learn from it, and say, that was ego. This is Holy Spirit. And we're training our mind to see the difference so that we can stand for what we believe, what we prefer, what we want to script as our new reality. But you assigned a meaning in light of goals that change with every meaning shifting as they change. Okay, yes, we attach meanings to things. I attach meanings to my bank account. I attach meanings to having a partner. I had attached meanings all from my ego, that all these things were going to keep me safe, that the external was going to make me look good, that I was going to be basically safe and secure because my prince in shining armor was going to take care of me, or the government was going to provide. Those days are gone. They're not part of my reality. All of that in my life had to fall away. All of that had to break down so that I could emerge as the one, because I am the one in my reality that can connect me with God. You are the one in your reality that can connect you with God. It's not going to come to you from the church or from the community that you go to or from anything outside of you. All of those things are all well and good. They're fun. They're exciting, like-minded people. It's joyous to be around them. But then you got to come back into the quiet of your own space. You got to come back into the quiet of your own voice, or the noise in your own mind, and make peace with God and come to know who you really are. And this is a journey that turns us totally and completely, turns our lives inside out, upside down. It just has pulled everything that I thought had value. And I had to look at it and go, no, it doesn't. The only thing that has value is my inner peace. And then to share my life with fun and with ease with those who want to experience the same thing. That is what has value. And to wake up every morning, God, what would you have me do? God, how are you using me today? To truly become an instrument of God's peace, because you are no longer doing things in selfish pursuit. And by the way, to have fun and to let things be fun and easy, people say, well, that's selfish. Well, if you look at it from the ego, it is selfish. What can I do for me for fun? But when you do it for the greater good of all, you absolutely know that you are doing what it brings you joy, because it emits a frequency that is serving all of humanity. So if you want to have fun painting, or you want to have fun at the creek, or you want to have fun, for me, playing with my grandbabies, the laughter, all of that is emitting a frequency that is moving throughout the entire cosmos, sending a resonance of love, of joy, of laughter. That frequency is being felt by all beings that are in the darkest of places, and they're realizing there's got to be another way. Because those of us who are in purity, enjoying our power of co-creation, enjoying our ability to be mini gods everywhere, creating a world that is better for the greater good, are the very light that is helping humanity see that which has been in the darkness for way too long, which is a world run by egos, a world where we have given our power away because we were told that we were supposed to. And when we question that authority, because the Course tells us that we have a problem, and the problem is the authority problem. And when we question outside authority, and we go through a process of transformation that humbles us into coming to know the inner authority, the true authority that is not just in me, but it's in everyone else. And when we can see that authority in all beings, which is so evident in children, which is why I'm in Colorado right now, sitting at the feet of my gurus, because they are living the essence of the truth of who they are. It is not being indoctrinated out of them in the way that it was when I raised my children. And boy, did I indoctrinate my kids out of knowing their inner gurus. They had to listen to me. Anyway, so that's a whole different story, because it's a process of undoing. But with these grandbabies, is a process of not blocking the light that is already there, but rather allowing that light to have freedom to express itself in a way that makes perfect sense for whatever life they're here to play out, because their script is written as well. Anyways, that is it for this week. That's all that's coming through me. So if anybody wants to unmute yourselves, if you got a nugget or anything touched you, love to hear from you. If not, as always, we'll be back here next Wednesday, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And the rest of these episodes, you can find them on my YouTube channel. All right, everybody. Okay, see you guys next week. Love you all. Bye-bye.